Oye, 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 espérate y espérame. Pero vamos a hablar inglés.
No me llama Carlos, ese no es mi nombre, te voy a dar un cocotazo. Tienes que tener que ser muy genuino, muchacho. Me da pique porque para ti soy un fracaso. Me da pique porque para los hombres soy Pegaso. Me da pique porque hoy sobre paso. Me da pique porque ellos son carrasco. Me da pique porque ellos son carrasco. Un carrasco, dale fuetazo. Un carrasco, dale fuetazo.
Que lo que mi gente, welcome back to another episode of the VAMOS HABLAR INGLÉS podcast. I'm your host, La Reina Taína, and today we're going to be talking about poetry. Specifically, my poetry. The title of this episode is Reimagining the Self via Poetry with La Reina Taína. And today we're going to be talking about 11 of my poems that I've written in the past. And we're just going to hold space for each of them, maybe talk about some themes, some overlapping themes. But the main intention of this episode is to relax, have it be organic. I don't really have a script for this one, kind of my first time. I'm literally having an anxiety attack as we speak. This makes me manic. I need to have some type of plan. So the only plan is that I'm reading 11 poems that I chose. I definitely have a bunch more, many more. I have many more poems. But I wanted to just focus on these 11. Even though 11 is a lot, I couldn't narrow them down because there's just so much to talk about and there's just so many layers to my identity and my lived experiences that we can't, just say one or two or three poems. So yeah, let's go over a nice little, table of contents. I love giving a little table of contents moment. So today we're going to be going over, firstly, my life motto, which is to reimagine and challenge the self via art. You'll notice that the title of this episode today is similar to my life motto. So I'll go into more about that, the origins, how that came to be. And then, like I said, we're going to be listening to me read 11 of my poems. And I'm going to be reading them in chronological order. So I'm also going to share, the time that I wrote it and the date. Some of them may not have an exact time, but I think most of them do. I do a pretty good job at, dating my journal entries. So, yeah, and like I said, we're going to be talking about many different themes, so I definitely want to start out with some trigger warnings, so please be aware of the conversations that will be had in this episode. We will be talking about sexual violence, domestic violence, suicidal ideation. We're going to be talking about grief. We're going to be talking about broken families. So, if any of these things trigger you, please hold space for yourself to allow yourself to be taken care of. Make sure you always take care of yourself. And if that means you want to take the step away, or maybe this episode you may want to skip it, I 100% respect that and encourage that. So yeah. And what else? Yeah, we're going to be talking about trauma, loss, abandonment, neglect. So yeah, for real, take care of yourselves. Make sure y'all got your therapist, your psychs. Make sure y'all got your medication if you need it. Make sure y'all do your little meditations, whatever keeps you joyous and tranquil. It's kind of funny because everyone always asks me, or people wonder, how do I have time for all the things that I do? And that, I'm so put together, whatever. I'm going to be honest. It's just, I want to say that it's just discipline, but I'm just, I don't know. I just think, I really think, one would say it's discipline, but I would argue it's fucking trauma. I would argue it's trauma, 100%. But, let's see. Do I want to say, this is so funny. This is so, it's making me itch. You know what? Let's spark up real quick. That's what we need. Cheers. For those that wish to partake, I will be sparking up. If you would prefer to do our salud with water, tea, alcohol, or anything else, any form of grounding item, please bring it into the space now. And I want to do a cheers to episode 8. I never thought I'd be this consistent. So, that means I've been doing this for 8 months. We're going to do a cheers to the summer because a mí no me gusta el malito frío. So, let's hope it gets warmer. Warmer. Y nada. Salud, amor, sabiduría, everything. Cheers. Period. A little ASMR moment. That's one of my favorite sounds. I wonder that's probably loud as hell. Okay. Calmao. Anyways, because I only have 40 minutes to do this, I always feel like I have zero time to do everything. So like when people are like, how do you do everything? I don't even know myself. It's trauma, it's discipline, it's a mix of everything. So, yeah. Okay, so let's jump into the title. So, all right, let me put this down. Let's get serious. No, I'm kidding. And vamos a ver. Where did I even get that from? Like, I'm just a genius, you know. I'm just a boss ass bitch. That's just how it is. Like, I just be birthing genius. To reimagine and challenge yourself. So, okay. Okay, period. Now that we had our little smoke break, I also had a little, like, break. This is actually a different day. I'm recording this because there was way too much noise happening. Entonces, and also, you know, well, you don't know, but we'll spill the tea about that later. But yeah, different living situation right now. And I just want to hold more space to talk about my motto, my life motto, to reimagine and challenge yourself via art. So yeah, sit back, relax, and we're going to jump right into it. So basically, for disclaimer, this is going to sound mad elitist, and all of this is under the context of capitalism when I say this, but when I was in high school, I was, accepted to this 1 week leadership program for the summer, and it was held at Yale. It was like a business leadership shit, so little moment. National Student Leadership Conference, that's literally what it was called. The fact that I can still remember that. Entonces, nada, entonces I went there for a week, lived in Yale, and we were, I guess, taking workshops, trainings, classes, whatever may have you, at the business school at Yale. And we had some folks come in. There was like a Harvard MBA professor, blah, blah, blah. Entonces, that person specifically, he was a black man. I forgot his name. But he was talking about building your brand, your personal brand, and your life motto, and how people like Oprah, Bill Gates, and Beyonce, I think those were the examples that he used, they have their own little like 8 to 9 word sentence that sums up who they are, what they are, and what they stand for, and what services they provide, type of thing. So since 17, I've been thinking about what my brand is and what my motto is, and it was only until I think 3.5 years ago that I put together to reimagine and challenge the self via art. And long story short, where that essentially came from was a life of trying to understand my victimization as a survivor of sexual violence and domestic violence, me trying to navigate that and understand that through philosophy. I was actually really into philosophy at a very young age. Honestly, I credit that to reading all those books that I read, but also anime. Anime was very philosophical, especially if those who watch anime know the show Death Note. Death Note was one of my earliest anime shows that I watched. And long story short, in Death Note, there's this book called the Death Note, where if you write a person's full name and how they die, they end up dying in that way. So this high school student, I believe his name is Light, he essentially found the book because a demon had dropped it, and had dropped it accidentally, but then not accidentally, because he wanted a human to pick it up. So once you touch it, your flesh is tethered to the book until you die. So That's the whole thing. So then Light was like, oh, like I can get rid of all the evil in the world. So that's the whole premise of the whole show. It's very good, highly recommended. But it really made me think a lot about society, death, who decides who's good and who's bad. And it was around like 10 years old, like fifth grade, that I started doing a lot of research on Aristotle and Plato or Friedrich Nietzsche, and Descartes. And I'm just thinking about all these different forms of government, ways of life, ways of living, different philosophies of life. All of that really intrigued me. And I really started thinking a lot about my victimization and making sense of the emotionally immature parents that I was raised by. And reimagining came in mind since I was a young age, since I was at a young age. And I never had the word reimagination as a child, but imagination was something that was very present, you know. When I was a kid, I had a lot of imaginary friends, and honestly, guilty as charged, still do to this day. They're way better to talk to than actual humans. Pero nada, entonces that was my support system, right? I used my imagination to save myself from suicidal ideation, from attempting suicide, from any other form of, you know, crime, delinquency, what have you. And through that, through my wanting to escape into anime, into the Pokemon games that I would play, right, into the shows that I would watch, like Avatar: The Last Airbender, right, I wanted to dive into this imagination world, right, into my imagination world. So imagination was a very, very important thing, and I think imagination is a core foundation to storytelling, and from there, it's a very important catalyst, very important, I guess, ingredient to poetry, right? What we're talking about right now. So I want to reimagine, but I also want to challenge. I want to challenge myself because I've learned that through all the trials and tribulations in my life, I had a lot of challenges, and I faced those challenges head on. And those challenges made me who I am today. Those challenges made me feel confident and safer and happier and more beautiful. So we need that, right? We need those hills. We need conflict. Conflict is organic. Conflict is natural. Conflict is a part of humanity and a part of human growth, right? It's how we react to that conflict that makes a difference. Sit with that one for a second. Entonces, como dije, to reimagine and challenge the self, I put the self in quotes because I'm talking about like ourselves, right? But when I say the self, I'm referencing Sigmund Freud's self, the ego, the id and the ego, you know. Entonces, what do I mean by that? I mean, when you're on this mission to becoming a better person, you need to not only reimagine and challenge your personality, for lack of a better term, but you need to essentially reincarnate yourself from ground zero all the way up. You know, it's not just, oh, okay, I'm gonna go to church every Sunday now and I'm gonna go to the soup kitchen once a month. Like, that's not what I mean by reimagining and challenge the self. You need to go deep into your subconscious, into your heart, into your gut, and figure out what brings you discomfort and understand why that brings you discomfort. You know, because those are the things that we're running away from. And that's what led me to wanting to have this as my life motto. Because I always say I'm a student for life. I'm a quote Eartha Kitt when she said that her tombstone will be her diploma, meaning that she is a student for life, a lifelong learner. That's me, 100%. So when I'm talking about learning and growing, I'm not just talking about, you know, me getting more degrees, me having more money, me, you know, growing my tits now that I'm on hormones. Like, I'm talking about all of me, from my spirit all the way to the physical. Additionally, I wanted to add some of my philosophies into this, you know, since it's my podcast after all. And what makes a good human? What makes a great human? What makes a great leader? That's a question that I've asked myself my entire life. What makes a good human? What makes a great human? What makes a great leader? to me, what I've learned in my many years of traveling the world, of immersing myself in different languages and cultures and different cuisines, what I've learned is that the best MVP of humans is the individual that takes their time to absorb and overstand each individual being in its proximity, in its existence. Not just human beings, but plants, fungi, cats, cheetahs, snakes, whales, rocks, volcanoes, everything that bees, right, should have that level of love coming from you. You should have that want to understand, not to conquer, right, but to become. Being an amazing, great person, human, whatever may have you, the best of the best of the best, to me, in my opinion, based off of my lived experiences, based off of my world traveling, and also based off of my real expertise of me doing the alternative history, the alternative research to all of our histories as humans, I've learned that you have to be like my boy from Game of Thrones. El chichi, what's his name? Que no podía caminar y que se cayó. En Jesús San Diablo. Vamos. No, we're gonna have to search this up. El fulano que él sabe todo. No, oh my god. Espérate. Game of Thrones. What's his name? Is it Ben? Game of Thrones. Fuck. La boy entry. Please come up. Bran Stark. Yes. Wait. Yeah. Pero como what was the name that they gave him at the end though? Como que, am I just making this up? Doesn't he have a fucking name que como que the Bran the all knowing or algo así? Well, y'all know what I'm talking about. For the girls that know, y'all know what I'm talking about. Anyways, so for those that don't know what I'm talking about, super quick, I'm trying my best not to do spoilers, but it's kind of impossible because this is a spoiler. But for those that don't want to hear, skip it. But in Game of Thrones, there's a family called the Stark family. They were originally in season 1, they were the ones running the shit across all the kingdoms, ¿verdad? Entonces, ¿qué pasa? Uno de los niños, they pushed him because they, as in some other family dynasty, pushed him off the thing because he was supposed to be king and they didn't want that to happen, or lo que sea, whatever. Then he survived, but he was paralyzed, but then he got this like gift of like knowing shit or seeing visions. Long story short, he ends up in this tree. He gets like eaten up by this tree, and while he's in this tree, this is like the oldest tree in like forever and all of like Game of Thrones existence, so like he can see everything that's happening in real time, and he also knows everything. So then it becomes this whole thing of like he's like the knowledgeable and he should be the one that reimagines, right, the new order, the new kingdom or whatever. So what I'm saying is that Game of Thrones and Brandon Stark or Bran Stark, he is a beautiful example of what I'm talking about. Of you literally have to become the tree. You have to become the culmination of the lived experiences of everything around you in order to really understand how to move forward, in order to really understand human evolution, in order to evolve as a human. That is the next step. The next step isn't war. The next step isn't AI. The next step isn't capitalism. The next step is this spiritual liberation, this willingness to absorb, to overstand the world around you. That's why I created that motto of mine. To reimagine and challenge the self via art. Why do I put art? Why art? Since the beginning of time, since the beginning of humanity, even before then, there has always been expression via art. Especially via humans, we know this. From cave drawings all the way to the Renaissance era, to the Harlem Renaissance, to the 21st century, we have always expressed all of our emotions, good, bad, and neutral, via art. That is how we bleed as humans. That is how we communicate as humans. Right? A picture is 1,000 words. There are things in art and in symbolism that can transcend human language, that can transcend evolution in many ways. And that is why, still to this day, when we talk about social activism, we use art. Artivism. Art and activism as one. As they always have been. As they always have coexisted together. So, my motto, to reimagine and challenge the self via art. Is the way that I feel like I never have time to do anything. Also, I love that you guys are hearing like the little bird noises in the background. I have a little YouTube thing playing in the back because, you know, bitches be loud. And if y'all are going to hear noise, at least it's cute little birds in the background, right? So, I'm wondering, I think I have time. So, we're going to read the first poem. And I'm going to give some background, read the poem, and then do some analysis. I think that's kind of the mojo, the road I want to take right now. The road less traveled. Entonces, this one is called Pondus. Pondus means weight in Latin, I believe, right? Heavy, weight or heavy. I wrote this September 30th in 2018. This was the first month of me going to Brown University, my first time in college. It was 11:05 p.m. I was coming back from Keeney Quadrangle, which is like Southside campus, I believe. And I was just coming up because I used to live in Andrews Commons, which was all the way up north. In Uptown, LOL. No, they don't say Uptown, downtown. They don't say that. I just wanted to say that. Nada, yo estaba subiendo and I was just having a lot of homesickness, but not really missing the fam, the bio fam, missing more like my birth mother, and like really feeling like shit that she didn't help me move in. Obviously, we know that my late mother passed away when I was 2 years old. So it's just, you know, kind of like imagining that she's doing it, but realizing that she isn't. It's a whole moment. I'll do a little film one day about it. And as I was walking back to my dorm, I wrote this poem. So yeah, I'm gonna read it and then we'll do a nice little analysis. So I was 18 years old. I had just came out as bisexual in August 25th, 2018. So, you know, everyone knows now. So let's see. But not non-binary or trans. That was later. So here we go. Pondus. Arms swing forward, then back. Shoulders fall deeper and deeper toward the earth. Blood-red backpack inches off my sinking shoulders. Feet submerging into the ground with every half step. Sharp pain shooting up my shins, knees below the earth. This weight I carry on my back. my cross. In preparation for my crucifixion, 7 stones I carry, each weighing 1 ton, each encompassing my transgressions. Hips below the earth, she swallows me slowly, devouring every fraction of my melanin. Thorns beautifully placed on my crown, each piercing representative of my transgressions. Torso below the earth, the ground crushing my chest, gradually losing the breath of life. She greets me with a kiss. Hello, my child. All that remains are my 2 eyes and my scarlet crown. My little prince. Vision blurs, losing consciousness. Perdóname, mama. So that was Pondus. Like I said, I wrote that September 30th, 2018, at 11:05 p.m. And also, I forgot to mention earlier, if folks want to follow along with me, you can visit my website at www.lareinataina.com/poetry. And you can find all of my poems that I will be reciting today and additional poems as well. So yeah, so this was Pondus. And also, happy last day of National Sexual Assault Awareness Month. I think this podcast episode is very timely to close out SAM, and really to close out SAM and focus on the resiliency, the art that comes from the stories of survivors, especially survivors of color, especially trans survivors of color. So yeah. Alright, so yo, my high ass. This, I'm holding up the microphone and this shit is heavy on my arm now. I'm just, can I place it like this? Will y'all be able to hear me still? Let's hope. And nada. Entonces vamos a analizar esto. So Pondus, I think that was my first poem that I wrote while in college. So that's what made it so special. That's why I wanted to choose it. I think also, but for me, the beginning of my life the way that I wanted it began after August 25th, 2018. Because that gave me the opportunity to start exploring and experimenting on my identities and my personalities. So it was very, very important, very, very special for me. And so I don't know. I'm feeling called to go line by line. So let me look at my phone. Mm-hmm. 2 a.m. I want it, girl. Alright, so vamos para atrás. Vamos para Pondusitus. Something for y'all to know, because again, I'm so excited because I really don't ever talk about my poems and how I made them and whatever. So one thing that I did a lot back then, I don't do it as much anymore, but when I was really good at writing my poems on my phone, on my notes app, I always wanted to give the title, I wanted the title to be something impactful, thematic, but also from another language, because I was the type of person that, like I've told you before, this whole trying to accumulate, essentially. Oh, actually, this is a great way to transition into. I think I've mentioned this in the past regarding like Pokemon, but Pokemon, the concept of Pokemon, for folks that don't know, is that there's a young individual named Ash Ketchum, and he turned 10 years old, and essentially his mission is to become the greatest Pokemon trainer of all, the greatest Pokemon master. And what's really important about this story is that in order for him to be the greatest Pokemon master, he needs to catch all of the Pokemon that exist in the world. So again, it makes sense, right? Because if you call all the Pokemon in the world, that means you know all the names of the Pokemon, their types, what moves they use, their stats, how tall they are, how short they are, when they go hungry. So if you are in this industry, let's say, of Pokemon trainers, and you're the only one in that whole industry that has that type of knowledge, you won. You are the best of the best. You are the MVP of the MVP of the MVP, point blank. So when I was a kid, I was like, yeah, I want to catch it all, in a metaphorical sense, but also in a literal sense. So for me, it means a lot because it opens doors, it opens doors to different cultures, and also it opens windows of opportunity, windows of perspective, of cultural perspective. Something that I learned a lot from my Mandarin teachers in college is that language is like a window, and the more languages you have, the larger the window, or the more elegant, or the more beautiful. And it's like, again, the more techniques in window making you have, the more complex, the more beautiful, the more sturdy windows you can make. The sturdier the windows you can make, right? So yes, the titles always meant a lot to me. They were always different languages. But yeah. Diablo, ahora yo quiero jugar Pokemon. Anyways, so yeah, going through Pondus, right? The first section, arms swing forward then back, shoulders fall deeper and deeper towards the earth, blood red backpack inches off my sinking shoulders, feet submerging into the ground with every half step. I'm essentially setting the stage, you know. I'm literally walking in the dead of night, back to my dorm. I have a red backpack. Something that is important to note about me as a character in this poem, but in general, is that most of my life I had red backpacks, like school backpacks. Red was my favorite color, still is my favorite color. I'm literally wearing a red bra right now. So then I started talking about sharp pain shooting up my shins. I had shin splints my freshman year of high school. This is my freshman year of college. So I really wanted to bring that back of like, it's a different space, but it's more of the same. And the pain is still the same. That's kind of what I'm trying to portray there. And then knees below the earth. What I say here is that the cross that I have on my back as I'm walking is weighing on me, and the floor becomes like quicksand. So throughout the poem, I'm getting swallowed up by the floor little by little. So at this point, my knees are below the ground. I think it's really powerful because, I don't know, I guess one would think the swallowing of me would be a little slower, but I find it symbolic that it already had taken my knees and everything below. Talking about my hips below the earth now as she swallows me whole. So, you know, earth, she devouring every fraction of my melanin. That speaks for itself. Thorns beautifully placed on my crown. For those that were raised Christian and Roman Catholic, we know that this is a religious reference to Jesus Christ when he was crowned with the crown of thorns as a mockery of him being the king. So it's very important because there have been a lot of artists, right, and poets who have used the passion of Christ as a metaphor to their life and their transgressions and their trials and tribulations. So I find that to be one adhering to that structure, but then two, really relating it to my actual life, because I was raised Roman Catholic. I was baptized, I received communion, and I was confirmed. So it's the whole nine. For folks who know, so it's important. Also, I'm Latinx, right? The conversation of how Catholicism eradicated indigenous peoples across Abayala. So very important things. Over here is saying torso below the earth, the ground crushing my chest. Crushing my chest, the ground means many things. The ground means the foundation of systems of oppression, the foundation of white supremacy, the foundation of mass incarceration. It means so much there. Gradually losing the breath of life. She greets me with a kiss. When I say she, I'm talking about the kiss of death. I'm talking about the angel of death. But at the same time, I'm also talking about my birth mother, who has passed away, So it's like, it's a 2-in-1. Because at the end of the day, everything exists in superposition outside of this binary world that we've created. So I see the angel of death as the same as my mother, and vice versa. Then she says, hello, my child. And then I say, all that remains are my 2 eyes and my scarlet crown. And I think that's really, really important to know, because now there's nothing left of me. Like, I can't even breathe. I'm below, and all that's left is my head and my eyes. And then the quote goes, my little prince. Obviously, we know the book, The Little Prince, and The Crown, and the whole thing, right? And again, thinking about The Little Prince and the moon, and how planets and big celestial bodies were involved in that book, talking about how this celestial body is consuming me. Vision blurs, losing consciousness, right? I get deeper and deeper. Perdóname, mamá. Perdóname, mamá is a closer to me calling out to Orquídea, my mother, my birth mother, telling her, I'm sorry that I failed you, because during this time I really felt like I failed her in many ways. So it's like I'm sorry that I failed you, combined with also perdóname mamá, as in I recently came out as bisexual. So it's like me asking forgiveness for my legal guardian, my grandmother, right? The folks that raised me, asking for their forgiveness. And then I close it out with an exhale. And yeah, that is Pondus. Let's go to number 2. Hallelujah. 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 When it goes like this, the fourth, the manifold, the measure, the perfect, composing hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Anyways, enough of that. Seguimos. So, poem number 2 is called Soul. We're going to fast forward to 2020. This was around my birthday time. This was November 6, 2020, around midnight, 12:11 a.m. This was a not good time. 2020 was my worst year. That's when I realized that I was really suicidal, because that was my first year attempting suicide. And first heartbreak, real heartbreak, because it was my first queer relationship, and some bullshit happening in my family, and COVID. That didn't help at all. That was my first COVID summer. I was at home. Smoked weed for the first time, so very emotional. That summer I smoked weed for the first time and I started eating edibles, so like really tapping into that girl by the time it was November. So it's interesting, right? Because real quick, like this was like out of the 11 that I'm about to show you, and I'm doing it in chronological order. Already at the second one, we are like pothead, like, you know what I mean? Like we are a spiritual stoner. So it's like, I don't know, I think it's interesting, and like let's just hold space for that, because everything that I'm gonna share, it matters, right? It's all connected. We're gonna look at this from a critical pedagogical standpoint, meaning we're gonna look at my entire life holistically and remember that every single part of my life, from decisions to choices, matter. Damn, now I really want to like watch Doctor Who. That's my high ass. Like, I'm very inner child. Like, I want to play Pokemon right now, watch Doctor Who, eat some avena, pero avena dominicana. Porque yo no como esa avena de mierda de americano. No. Yo no como eso. Avena dominicana. Entonces, eso, a little blanket, and then like a TV show in the background, like Avatar: The Last Airbender on repeat. Or something. Espérate. Okay. Ya. Empezamos. Se llama Soul. This one doesn't have a different, what you call it? Language. Sorry, I just kept it for real. So, again, the setting is November time. And I had just got broken up with, I think a couple of weeks before this. And we going through the emotions. We high as fuck. We on some SI shit. So let's hold space for this vulnerability. Okay? Soul. My soul is immortal, yet it hides inside mortal flesh. Decaying bones and failing organs. Why does it rely on flesh for protection? It is trapped, locked in its cage, a cage that it chose to be in. Be free, I yell, yet it still stays. Why? Why limit your capabilities? No sé. End of poem. So yeah, this one was a short one, straightforward to the point. It's like, this one is kind of like a conversation I'm having with myself and my soul, right? Right. I'm talking about, I'm really pondering the philosophies of life here, right? It's like, it's such a juxtaposition, it's such a paradox, right? It's such a paradox to say that there is something that is immortal, that is trapped within mortal flesh. You know, and again, like comparing immortality to bodily autonomy, it's like just because something is immortal doesn't mean it's actually free. And in a lot of cases, immortality isn't freedom. And it's just like, again, like you're hiding behind mortal flesh, decaying bones, and failing organs, you know, like failing organs, decaying bones, that with like several of my chronic illnesses, but also the aging body, right? As time passes, I ask it and myself, why do you rely on this flesh for protection? And then I say it is trapped. So it's not even that it's relying on this flesh for protection. It's trying to get out, but it's trapped. It's locked in a cage, like I said. But then here's the flip: a cage that it chose to be in. Because now I'm quoting the philosophies of life, more in particular to how some folk believe that our souls sign a contract in order to reach a next dimension, a next higher level of themselves. They enter into a contract to come down to earth and experience what they need to experience in order to make it to that next nirvana, that next heaven, that next afterlife, right? That next crossing over. Be free, I yell, right? But it still stays. Why? Why limit your capabilities? And then the reply is no sé. It's interesting because even though I said no sé and I ended it like that, we do know why, right? Maybe I didn't know then, but we know now in hindsight. It stays because it has a mission. It has something to do. There's something that needs to be done. This soul needs to complete something on this earth. It's not limiting their capabilities. It's maximizing it. So that was a little conversation between me and my soul. Let's move on to number 3.
Órale, órale pues, órale pues, órale pues. Okay, just trying to organize this.
Ay, no fuimos. And número 3 is called separation anxiety. I wrote this in my car when I had a car. Acura TL 2007 or 2006. 2007. I think it's 2007. This was December 2nd, 2020. It was 3:54 p.m. At this point, I'm almost positive it's been like 2 to 3 weeks that I haven't really eaten properly. So yeah, that was like one of the beginning stages, or maybe even the catalyst to the eating disorder that I'm trying to recover from now. So yep, lots of vulnerability here. This is a safe space. Separation anxiety is a poem based off of my former relationship, my first queer breakup. I don't even be talking so much about this, so that's why this podcast episode is so special, because I don't be talking about exes and shit like this. That's like the Scorpio in me. Anyways, diablo que hambre yo tengo. Separation anxiety. I never knew how much you meant to me until you left. I'm stupid, foolish, a total dickhead. Every day since that Thursday, October 22nd. Every day since that day has felt like I've been attending the funeral of the battered woman that I came to know as my mother. I've been attending her funeral for 41 days straight, nonstop. The pain I feel, the separation anxiety I've been experiencing, is the same pain I endured when I found out the truth about my mother's death on November 1st, 2014. Losing you felt like I lost her all over again. Losing you felt like my own death. I've never been afraid of death until now. Excuse me while I prepare my body for the wake. But first, I have to attend my mother's funeral again for the 42nd time. Perdona su pueblo, señor. End of poem. So yeah, that one's a doozy. Yo, I love like American lingo shit. Eso me mata. I mean, you get the first part. Yeah, like he meant a lot to me, and I felt like a lot of it, well, I'll be honest, I was undiagnosed bipolar, so that's one. And two, it was just like being raised by emotionally immature parents who were very toxic and projected their shit onto their loved ones, especially their romantic partners. I copied and pasted that shit. And at the end of the day, like, it's my ability to introspect and look at that and not do that shit anymore, and see that it's also not my fault, because it's again a product of the greater systems of oppression, right? If white supremacy hadn't destroyed Abayala, destroyed Turtle Island, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. So it's like this whole mass forgiveness for myself, but for my family and the world. That's something that's really hard, right? Because ego gets in the way. So every day since that Thursday, October 22nd, so I got broken up with Thursday, October 22nd,
And I really like how I said it's the same feeling as attending the funeral of the battered woman that I came to know as my mother. That really hit home, because I remember writing that in the car and I was like, dead boogers. Like, it was just like, that's exactly how it felt, you know? And I know for the folks out there that really had a real ass romantic heartbreak, they know what I'm talking about. Like, that shit is that shit make you suicidal shit. And then the 41 days straight, I'm trying to essentially reference the 40 days and 40 nights of the flood, Noah's flood and Noah's Ark, and also of Lent. Again, I'm a sucker for putting a lot of like religious metaphors in my poems. I think it's funny because as a post-structuralist, like, I like to juxtapose that on purpose, as a way of like saying the truth of my former experience, my former lived experience as a Roman Catholic, but also just being like, you don't control me. I'm a use you how I want to use you type of thing, you know. I don't fear the Catholic God, you know, as I was raised to. And entonces I'm talking about how it feels like the same pain as when I found out the truth about my mother's death. So that's when I found out that you know, my birth father murdered her essentially, and he's been in jail ever since. And like what's important to note here is that my biological family never told me this, right? So before 14, that entire time span between that, I was told that she died in her sleep. Even though I knew in my heart of hearts that was completely wrong, because since I was at least 4 years old, I had nightmares. But every single time I would go to bed, actually, I would have nightmares. And you know how everyone, I know some folks know this, but you know how when you're about to fall asleep and you have this dream that you're falling, and then you like fall, and then you kind of like move in your sleep, or it startles you enough to wake up? So like I would have that, right? But before I would have that, I would have these flashing images of like this bloody face, like this bloody face, like this figure. And like I've been introspecting this for quite some time, especially through therapy and everything. And it's like, I'm almost positive I saw my mother get murdered, because it's like, how am I 4 years old and I've never seen not one horror movie, and I'm over here 4 or 5 years old having these types of graphic as nightmares? So it's like, it's a big deal for a 14-year-old to have to grasp that, because when I read those court cases online, and I read the whole detail about how her body was disposed of in a garbage all the way up in the Bronx. Like, she was living in Piscataway, New Jersey, which is like that's like almost 2 hours from each other. So it's like, it's a whole thing, you know. It was public, and that's another thing. I felt blindsided because that was on the internet this entire time. You feel me? That was on the internet probably as early as Google and YouTube were invented. Like, that's what kills me, because it's like I felt like everybody knew except for me, the person that needed to know. So it really was life-changing for me, in all honesty. So then we go to losing you felt like my own death. Again, like going back to the concept of suicidality, and just like, you know, playing with that in this poem here. And then I say, excuse me while I wait, while I prepare my body for the wake, for my wake, right? But first, before I do that, I have to attend my mother's funeral again, because I wanted to add that attend my mother's funeral again because of this inevitability of grief, right? What I learned in that moment, and also just even now in hindsight, grief is a long-term process. You know, it's 100% a lifelong thing. That's not something that you just quick fix and now you're done. You're always going to grieve the people that you grieve. I'm always going to grieve my mother. It doesn't matter how happy or successful or in love I am. Thinking about her every second of my life, whenever I think about her, It's literally like seeing that face again. Like, always. It doesn't matter that I was two-ish, 2.5, whatever, when it happened. Every single time I think about her, it's like her dying in front of me all over again. For the 42nd time. And the reason why I wanted to say 42nd was actually because of Jackie Robinson. So again, like, combining it with the true Dominican and Black American history that I was raised on, right? Because again, soy dominicana, so I was raised with a very strong baseball background, right? I was a part of the little leagues. I was a switch hitter, you know. It kind of stopped there. Like, I did a whole little tryout moment in high school in the freshman year, pero tú sabes, I did not want to do that. I ended up doing track. I had no choice. I had to pick a sport, and I was like, fine, vamos a correr, coño. Que yo sé cómo correr. Es que yo estoy cansado con ese béisbol del diablo. That's not my thing. Okay? Yeah, I can't force people to do things they don't want to do. But yeah, so that's why I chose 42, because again, it's a juxtaposition and also historical context to my life, right? To my character. Because I literally lived in Yankee Stadium. I lived in the old Yankee Stadium more, but I also lived in the new Yankee Stadium. Only until, like, I stopped going with my family probably high school. I think middle school was the last kind of section. Because honestly, after A-Rod and Jeter left and they already hit their 3,000 home run, honestly, that was it. And mind you, the family was so lit with that. I don't know if folks know baseball, but my family was so lit with that shit. We went to the 3,000 home run for Jeter and A-Rod, and we went to Jeter's last game, and we went to A-Rod's last game, I think. But anyways, juxtaposing with that, but also juxtaposing with the fact that black women in general, black women in the United States are highly more likely to experience domestic violence. And it's just like, that's why I put 42nd, because again, Jackie Robinson went through trials and tribulations because of racial profiling and systemic racism, right? So that juxtaposed with the fact that, again, Jackie Robinson wasn't one individual that became this entire theme, this entire movement. My mother is one individual that becomes this entire movement that is within me. I am the movement, right? So it's like, and then we close out with Perdona su pueblo, señor. The reason why I put that is because that's a religious song, one, but two, it was a song that my legal guardian / grandmother would sing when we would get into fights sometimes, not all the times, but she would do it to like annoy me. And then I started doing it to annoy her, and it became like my thing. And like, look, it's so funny, honestly, looking back at it. But anyways, I did that again as like a double standard moment, where it's just like, I'm doing it, right? Because the intention, the method in which my mom used it and the method in which I used it was in a way to demean and to speak over the other person, right? To disrespect the other person. So like, again, this phrase, we can see it as a methodological framework of activism, of survival, of action. And we can see that looking at it with the previous line, right, for the 42nd time, we see just in these two lines such a connected, deep history of Pan-Africanism, of, the Industrial Revolution and eventually mass incarceration, Reaganomics. We see everything in just these two sentences right here, these two lines. And for folks that don't know how the song goes, it goes like this. Perdona su pueblo, Señor. Perdona su pueblo, perdónale, Señor. Woo! Yeah, basically. Perdona su pueblo, Señor. Perdona su pueblo, perdona, Señor. My weed lungs cannot do that anymore. But yeah, perdona su pueblo, Señor. Now, let's go to number 4. Ya, nos fuimos. Número 4. I'm over here taking my sweet ass time, and I was gonna say this was gonna be like a short. I mean, that's the thing, right? When you don't have a structure, you just lose track of time. Running out of time to make you love me. All right, so the next one is titled Peter Pan. This was a poem that I actually wrote to my ex-friend Tian on our last day, like as friends officially. We broke up as friends multiple times, but this was like the official last one. This was June 12th, 2021 at 10:05 p.m. I wrote this. I don't know if I read it to her the same night, but I wrote it then. She was big on poetry. She and my cousin Amanda were the ones that, or Vera now, they were the ones that really got me into like writing more in poetry. So see, them and Lil Wayne and them some. Pero nada. So let's go into it. Peter Pan. I feel like I'm Peter Pan, only here to help her escape her reality when she is fed up with the world and at herself. Here to save the day as her noble steed, blocking out weekends on end just to see that frown turn upside down, but to no avail. Tumblr was the beginning of this bond, this journey to Never Never Land, the land of misfits and toys, they call it. Words of desperation and surrender assemble, uttering the words, "I'm just over it, bro. Can we just run away?" Followed by a sigh, and I, here to listen. I am her scapegoat, her emotional punching bag, her break from reality, her imaginary friend. Let me take you to the land of milk and cookies, where parents don't exist, stress and anxiety are non-issues, and the only expectation is to be merry. I feel like the genie in the lamp. Rub my lamp 3 times so that I may be released from my prison, a prison I am only allowed to escape when she summons me, a prison with no reward, just service. Her little black crow, I am. She houses me in a birdcage, ensuring that I will never leave her. But I am malnourished and dehydrated. She fixates on the idea of me leaving my cage one day, so much so that she forgets to feed me and fails to provide me with my daily dose of hydrogen and oxygen. However, this little crow is sentient. He sees all, knows all, feels all. He sees the lack of excitement. He hears the indifference in her voice. He senses her displease. I spend so much of my time and energy escaping domestic violence just to somehow end up entangled by it once more. Suffocating in her vines clothed in thorns. They close in on my capillaries. Loving you is hurting me. Why does your love hurt me so? He's too busy, as an excuse for her lack of connecting with him. It takes her so much energy just for her to greet him, say I miss you, and initiate link-ups. That is why she doesn't. Inability to kill your ego, incapable of putting your pride aside, lack of emotional intelligence, scarce use of communication skills. Pobrecito Mercury. Hurts to know that a temporary individual can leave such an indelible mark on her. She helped me get through May. Those foreign words released from her tongue with ease and relief, and wrapped themselves around my cerebrum, as if none of my services were sufficient. No, this is not gaslighting. This is a crow attempting to make sense of this matrix. When life is calm, you have no need of me. It is only when you are fighting with mommy, people drive you off the wall, struggling with your professional development, or suffering from cramps and heartbreak when my presence becomes useful to you? What is my purpose? Hi, my name is Peter Pan. Wanna run away to Never Never Land with me? End poem. So that's deep. That's deep. You feel me? I gotta take a little sip of agua. That shit kill me. Okay. Oof. That one, right? That's a doozy. That's a doozy. My high ass love saying that shit, yo. Golly gee willikers. Okay. So come on, like, for the girls that know, you know, Peter Pan, like, we know who Peter Pan is. Peter Pan came into like a little pedophile came into the room full of children, and the children are like, fuck are you? And Peter Pan's like, I'ma snatch y'all and we gonna go to Ibiza and get lit because it's spring break. And they were like, period, like, let's go to spring break, period, Ibiza. So they in Ibiza and whatever, and then, you know, there's like a pirate, and the pirate is like, I'ma snatch all of y'all and I'ma steal the ferry. Oh yeah, Tinkerbell is a part of this. And yeah, then they have their time in Ibiza, and Ibiza. So, basically what I'm talking about in the first couple of lines is that, you know, basically throughout the whole poem, I'm saying that Galdem only wanted to hang out with me when it was to distract her from anything. Something that's really true about our relationship. It was a 15-year relationship. We knew each other since the first grade. We went to the same private Catholic school. Is that, like, there was just this confusing relationship where it consisted of this back and forth of being romantic partners / sexual partners / being platonic / siblings. So it was just this whole thing for 15 years straight. I feel like, you know, situationship, folks that know, folks that get it, you know, that's just how it is. You're trying to make sense of the world. You know, she was trying to make sense of the divorce of her parents at that young age, you know, and then some. And then I'm over here trying to make sense of my, you know, victimization as a survivor. So it's a great time, right? And again, like, we were the only visibly black individuals in our first grade classroom. So that's something that's really important to know, right? She's Jamaican, I'm Afro-Dominican. So it's something that it adds so much to the story, because, you know, it goes into the conversation of, like, exclusion, but also solidarity among black people, but also, like, not having enough folks of color to go to for support and to grow and to learn. You know, it's always one person or no people, and that affects our developmental growth. So seguimos. And then also, like, it's so the double entendre with the whole me saying he is that, again, at this time I was he, they, he, him, he, they. That's one. And also Peter Pan is a bidem. So, you know, fuck gender, but just looking at it from this perspective, just thematically speaking, this is how it went down. So then we talk about Tumblr. Tumblr was a big space where Tiana and I would text a lot. We send each other poems, fanfic, lo que sea. Personal vent sessions were always there, and not like on Kik, for those who know Kik Messenger from back in the day, or Snapchat, or iMessage. Like, that was a space to really talk about the real shit. Those were the spaces to talk about the SI and the bad thoughts and all these other things. So it was a very special time. Like, it's shit, make a movie about that. So yeah, Never Never Land, the land of misfits and toys. The lands of misfits and toys, that quote actually comes from the movie Perks of Being a Wallflower. One of my favorite, like, coming of age, old school type films. Highly recommend it. So yeah, because there was this gif of a scene of Perks of Being a Wallflower when Galdem is on the roof of the truck while they're going through a tunnel, and it's like a tradition as friends that they do. And you know, it's just like this whole coming of age, like, fuck the world, fuck SATs, like, I'm free, like, I don't care what anyone says, like, I'm successful now, type of thing. Like, that's the feeling that Tiana and I really chased a lot during this time. Yeah, and then just her communicating to me that she's over it and that she wants to run away with me. She used to say that a lot verbatim, and it's just like, again, I was her scapegoat, her emotional punching bag, her break from reality, her imaginary friend. Like, I wasn't really there, you know. And at this time, like, she was the one that introduced me to smoking weed first. So that's one. After that, she never wanted to smoke weed with me again. Like, it's like this whole, like, I felt like, despite the fact that I was the oldest, I felt like some little brother shit where it's like she would only want to smoke with her college friends, and I'm like, that's fine, but like, hello, like, and then when we would hang out, she would never want to roll up, she would never want to smoke nothing. It would be mad rare, or I would have to like beg her. It would be so weird, and I'm like, I'm so confused. You're the one that wanted to have the first time with me, and now like, I don't get it. So yeah, land of milk and cookies, where the, you know, utopia. And then I bring back Genie in the Lamp, because again, like, Peter Pan and the Genie in the Lamp, for me, they're kind of one and the same, right? And and I just go deeper into these analogies of imprisonment, right? Genie in the Lamp being whatever. Then I transition to one of my favorite Edgar Allan Poe stories, narratives, with the Black Crow, Nevermore. I think it's titled Nevermore. And I'm a big fan of crows, black crows. For folks that don't know, crows are extremely intelligent. Very, very intelligent. So it's very important to juxtapose that, because crows usually aren't really ever caged. They're too smart for that shit. So the fact that, again, a black crow, aka me, aka the fact that I'm also African American and, you know, Afro-diasporic, toda esa cosa, right? Just black identifying in general. That goes hand in hand there también, right? Making it more literal. And then again, the bird cage is an allegory to mass incarceration, but also the mass incarceration that I felt within the relationship that I had with Tia. So then again, like, and again, I'm guilty of charge with this stuff. When I talk about, she fixates on the idea of me leaving my cage one day. The fear that people are gonna leave you, that is a result of abandonment and neglect wounds. That's a result of emotionally immature parents, and that's something that I've learned over time that in hindsight I didn't know back then, right? So that's something that's really important to know, is that that's something that I did with a lot of people. Like, I would go out of my way to love bomb. Love bombing is a form of, like, you know, toxic manipulation, toxic relationship style. Love bombing, and go all out and do the most for my significant others or for other loved ones. And I did that with the fear of them leaving me. So, like, in my head, it brought me ease, because I'm like, well, there's no way they can leave me, because I already reassured them through XYZ, XYZ, XYZ. And it's like, at the end of the day, like, what I learned is that love is not transactional, and relationships are not transactional. It doesn't matter if you do 1,000 things for someone. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, it's like, I believe it was Angela Davis that said this. It's about how you make people feel, right? It's not about who they are or what they said to you. It's about how they made you feel. That's really the bottom line. When it all comes down, everything is boiled down. You know, it's how you feel, how you remember people, you know. So I didn't feel good. And again, she forgets to feed me. She fails to provide me my daily dose of hydrogen and oxygen. You know, that's water, H2O. I say that because, again, it's just like my emotionally mature parents that raised me. It's like, oh, I'm communicating to you my depression, and you combat that with, oh, but I gave you shelter, I came to this country, like, I don't understand, like, you're in a private school, like, you're so ungrateful, like, I don't understand. And it's just like, yes, you're literally feeding me, yes, you're literally providing me shelter, but you're not housing my emotions. You're not securing my feelings. You're not feeding my soul. Feel me? And that's a part of parenting. That's why y'all shouldn't be a parent. Don't be a parent if you can't be a parent. Like, understand that you're emotionally immature before you become a parent, because you're gonna fuck up your kid. That's just the truth. Now again, however, this little crow is sentient. He sees all, knows all, feels all. Meaning that in hindsight, I see how she feels about me. I see that it's just like I'm being dragged along, and she knows that. She like almost doesn't even know what to do with the relationship, you know. And this also came at a time when we had finished celebrating her birthday in like Long Island, and that entire day she was just really rude to me and just acting very spoiled. And that's just the tea, you know. That's just my lived experiences. I statements. And I really love how I drew the comparison with escaping domestic violence, and like how I'm just entangled by it once more. Like, again, fuck what anyone says. There is a whole spectrum of things that go under domestic violence. And this was a form of domestic violence. This was a form of intimate partner violence. Point blank, period. Stop confusing people and saying, oh, it's not DV because I don't have bruises. Fuck that shit. That is actually extremely inappropriate and horrible to even say to anybody, and to even have that mentality as a survivor. Feel me? Like, no. You know, there's, like I said, love bombing, right? Financial abuse, verbal abuse, spiritual abuse, religious abuse. There's so many ways to commit domestic violence, you know. And then because I was someone that was, you know, have always been ambitious, overachiever, relatively busy person, she would use my busyness as an excuse for like not texting me or not wanting to hang out. And I would have to always initiate everything. You know, I always have to initiate the I miss yous and everything. And then over here, lack of emotional intelligence, scarce use of communication skills, pobrecito Mercury. Mercury is the planet of communication, right? So lack of communication skills, and I'm saying poor Mercury, right? Pobrecito Mercury, because it's like, it's not being activated. Mercury's not being activated. Mercury's not being stimulated at this moment because communication is in retrograde. And then talking about other men and like former male and female partners, AMAB, AFAB partners of hers that helped her get through May. May was a tough time for her at the time. It was her birthday, but there was also family stuff going on, personal stuff. But still, it's just like, but then what about me these 15 years? So I'm chopped liver. I'm the one that stood by you all the times you were crying going through it. You feel me? Like, this is just me talking out loud to this. So again, this is a crow attempting to make sense of this matrix. When life is calm, you have no need of me. That's pretty self-explanatory. It's only when all these other things happen that I become useful to you. What is my purpose? I'm asking myself. And what I love is that when I ask what is my purpose, right, it immediately closes out with, hi, my name is Peter Pan. Want to run away to Never Neverland with me? You feel me? Because it's just like we're starting from the beginning, essentially. Like, it's I never get that answer of what is my purpose. It's just rinse and repeat. It's just capitalism. It's just cog in a machine. Like, it's just severance. It's just, hi, my name is Peter Pan. Like, I can't get out of it. This is my purgatory. This is my limbo. This is my reality. To be in monotonous, abusive, platonic, and romantic relationships with people. That was just me accepting it. That was just, everyone's been there, right? We've all been there as survivors, as victims of violence. Like, we just like paralyzed. We just say fuck it. Like, I don't, what, you know what I mean? Like, it's just so difficult to conceptualize. So yeah, that was that number 4? I'd be losing track. Peter Pan is number 4. So now we're gonna go to number 5, titled All I Wanted. All I wanted was you. All I wanted was you. All I wanted was you.
regresamos. I went to go take a little lunch break. Porque hay que comer. We gotta nourish the body. Alright, so, all I wanted. This is fast forward to the following year. It is June 29th, 2022. So the one before was June 12th, 2021. This one is June 29th, 2022 at 1:11 p.m. 111. Make a wish. Alright, so, esta poema se llama All I Wanted. You took me for granted, lied to me, fed me fantasies of milk and cookies. But the milk was poison, and the cookies, your shit. All I wanted was for someone to love me. I turned to you for love. And you used my love, my blind, loyal, selfless, die-hard, innocent, fragile, gentle, soft love. You used my love for your own selfish desires. I'm not disappointed because you lied to me and broke my heart. No. I'm disappointed at the fact that y'all never had the balls, the decency, the humanity to simply communicate to me that you were interested in a parasitic domestic violence relationship. I got a lot of kinks, but I'ma be vanilla for this one. If only I knew earlier, I would have chosen other souls to collide with. All I wanted was you. But now, fuck that. LMAO. Beat switch. It feels good to finally see the light, the truth, actuality. I've gained my power back. Actually, I've had it this entire time. Now it's time to learn how to wield it. End of poem. That's poem number 5. This was 2022. This was June. I was in my second queer relationship. I had just graduated. I had moved back to the tri-state area. I actually moved to the Lower East Side. I was still in a relationship, so that became a long distance relationship. This relationship was the longest relationship that I've had to date. I'm talking about my relationships. I'm talking about my family. I'm talking about loved ones. I'm talking about Tiana. I'm talking about everybody in this. When I wrote this, I was thinking about everybody. We see the reference of milk and cookies again in this one, which I really like. I like to see, themes, especially when these poems were poem number 4, poem number 5 are like a year apart from each other. So, but they were also written during Pride Month, which is special. I love the whole milk was poison and cookies your shit moment. That's just what it is. I love my listing of like the type of love that I have, the type of love that I give, innocent, die-hard, fragile, gentle, soft love. I love the whole part of like, I'm disappointed at the fact that y'all never had the balls, the decency, the humanity, parasitic domestic violence. So here it's just like, my inner child is yelling at folks for not letting me know that they wanted to be in a parasitic DV relationship. But it's like also simultaneously like the stark realization that like some folks do it so subconsciously, they don't even know that they're asking for that. You know what I mean? Like, we're subconsciously getting ourselves, especially for folks with complex PTSD, like me, complex trauma, like, there's a lot of self-sabotage moments, self-doubt moments where we end up with the same types of people, even if it is a different person, right? And we try to convince ourselves otherwise. Pero, yeah. And then I like the whole part about the kinks. That's funny. It works. And then I did like a beat switch moment. You'll see it on my website at www.reinataina.com/poetry. And then I close it out with talking about how I've always had my power, right? Like, I gained it back, but I didn't gain it back in the sense that I lost it. I gained it back in the sense that it came to the forefront of my consciousness, right? It came to the forefront of my being. So that's why it felt more of like a gaining of it back, like a retrieval of it. So yes, that is All I Wanted.
Period. The next one is short and sweet. So it's titled My Biological Family is the Worst. And then, why did I put this thing here? That's peculiar. Okay. This was December 18th, 2022, at 11:25 p.m. I already had gotten kicked out of my godmother's house, Ana Maria, and this is like a week before I get kicked out of my original childhood home / the home of my legal guardian / grandmother. So, my biological family is the worst. My biological family is the worst. They turned on my therapist when he helped me realize they were the problem. End poem. Simple. This was the time when I was learning about the fact that when I was stuck in lockdown, COVID lockdown with my grandmother, legal guardian. It was just me and her in our apartment in Passaic City. And I took that opportunity, one, to get a therapist during that time, and two, use the methods that the therapist was providing me with to set the stage, right? To find time and space for Mama and I to really like sit down and open up about these things, about my traumas, about what's going on with me, you know? And like many folks, first gen, students, youth, people know, when it comes to immigrants, Latinx and Caribbean immigrants, mental health is a taboo, and communicating your depression or your mental health symptoms to your biological family or to your parents in general is a slap in the face to the work that they put into raising you, because they see it as a failure on their part that you are depressed or suicidal, and as a means of protecting their integrity and their dignity and their ego, they do not make that part of your life, your mental health, a responsibility of themselves. They say that part is your responsibility, right? So that's what happened with me. And yeah, I kept it simple because there's really not much to say. It says it right there. So let's move on to number 7, Rope of Healthy Thorns. This was, fast forward to the following year. So this is April 12th, 2023 at 12:45 a.m. This was at midnight. I wrote this after getting into a tough fight with my third ex, queer ex. And this is the funny thing, like, you start to see that a lot of my conversations about my exes and like certain stuff like that is found more in my poems than you'll see than my art, than my songs rather, right? You may not really hear too much. I feel like the Nueva Jersey is probably the only one that really holds a limelight to my romantic life, I guess. Entonces, Rope of Healthy Thorns was a poem I wrote for my ex at the time, and he read it and he wrote a poem back, and I'm an artsy bitch and I attract artsy people, so that's how I communicate. So yeah, so we will be reading Rope of Healthy Thorns. This was at a time when I was running Logro, which is the nonprofit that I co-founded. And yeah, long story short, it was a nonprofit that supported and empowered and uplifted LGBTQ youth in Passaic City, New Jersey, specifically the high school students, getting them ready for college, etc., helping them with their social activism in their schools, etc. My nonprofit put together the first, second, and now third Pride Festival in the 152 years of Passaic City's existence. So yeah, I started that shit. I did it. And so during this time, I was going through a lot in terms of, me coming more into my transness, me struggling with this romantic relationship, me struggling with capacity building for Logro, because during this time I was taking the brunt of the responsibilities when it came to financial organization, logistical organization, programming, etc. A lot of it fell on me. And that's a big reason why I, distance myself from that towards the end of it. So here we go. Rope of healthy thorns. You coiled me. I'm a rope of healthy thorns. You meant well, but fame goes into your head. Not only that, but trauma. Just like me, you wanted to run so fast that you didn't give a flying fuck who you ran over along the way. You coiled me, wrapped me tight. With every interaction, every reunion, you tighten. The thorns, so healthy and beautiful, with its sharp razor, each thorn representing the broken shards of glass that once was my heart. You broke my heart, blew that fucker up into 1,000 pieces. But that wasn't enough, right? Nah, you needed more. A trauma-filled soul like yours needed a bigger fix. You snort the white lines of capitalism to ensure your next reign of terror. Instead of piecing me back together, you turn shards of me into healthy thorns on a rope. With each tug of that rope, the thorns, my shards, dig into my dermis, down to the nerves, paralyzing me. Meeting my muscles with tears and shreds, to then drill through my bones like a coal miner, to then greet my bleeding organs with the kiss of death. You consumed me. You burned me out. You continue to do so. Is this what we meant by achievement? Is this what breeds from American capitalism? Was this inevitable? You coiled me. I couldn't help but think this would happen, especially after that cold autumn night. Such a chilly night it was. No matter. No one wanted to matter. Chucking the deuces. RD, espérame ahí. End poem. Okay, so with this one, right? This one, a lot of it is directed at my ex. And it's just at the time we were doing a fundraiser that, again, I had to plan, initiate, put together, and get all the supplies for. We did a fundraiser with collaboration with my former preschool / kindergarten children's day preschool. It's a nonprofit on Jefferson Street in Passaic City. The best school ever. Almost everybody is an art therapist, the folks that teach there and take care of the kids. The food is always healthy and like homemade. I used to eat sancocho and like all the best stuff for lunch at that space, at that place. And yeah, so we were just selling empanadas with their help, using their front space as a venue space. And it was a lot because the work of Logro strained on my romantic relationship. If it wasn't for Logro, it was going to end eventually, but I know things would have been less intense if I didn't have Logro on my mind every 5 seconds. So the reason why I call it Rope of Healthy Thorns is because, like, thorns already has a negative connotation, and I juxtapose it with the word healthy because out of the 3 relationships that I've mentioned so far, the third one was the one that felt most real, most refreshing, right? With a guise of it being the same shit as the former 2 relationships. It was just packaged better, right? It really opened me up to understanding more about my Dominican roots because he was originally from the Dominican Republic, born there, went to school there. Ironically, is a part of the same grew up in the same province as my entire family, biological family. So it just hit home. So that's why, like, for me, it was just like, this was a toxic relationship, but it was healthy in so many ways because it helped me come into my own, in terms of my own cultural identity, my cultural wealth. Nada. Entonces, seguimos. I talked about how you meant well, but fame goes into your head. Just thinking about how he wants to be a celebrity hairstylist. He went to cosmetology school for that. So just surface level, just talking about how, like, I felt like in a lot of cases he was doing things for the wrong reasons, not because he actually wanted to do it, like out of passion. Broken glass. Broken glass, you know. It reminds me of this time that with my second ex, and when I say second ex, I'm talking about queer ex. I had other exes in my past, but, like, those are heteronormative relationships, and that was, like, a different chapter in my life. So when we're talking about my exes, there's just 3 exes. That's it. We keep it at that. And so my second ex's car was broken into, and the glass on the passenger side was broken, shattered completely, actually. He parked it at a next door grocery store. I think it was a Lidl. I don't remember. And then, because he was coming to visit me from Boston, and I was, I had my own off-campus housing in Providence. And yeah, that shit. The next day we were supposed to go to the beach. We still ended up going to the beach, but it was a whole thing. So it's this conversation of the relationship is already broken and there's nothing you can do about it. But because of emotional immaturity, delusion, wanting to seek for validation, and abandonment and neglect wounds, we try to fix the glass. We, like, clean everything up. We put a bunch of towels on the seat so I could sit. We get a garbage bag and cover the window, and, like, we fucking still drive on 40 to an hour to the beach, and still had the whole day, and, like, it became a very fun, special, memorable day. But still, it's like the relationship ending was inevitable, and I had many signs in all 3 of my relationships. I had many, many, many signs that it was obvious enough for me to realize, like, yeah, this needs to end. What else? He needed more trauma fill, and then, yeah, this individual has a lot of complex PTSD and trauma as well, so it's like, this is a lot going on there. I love the analogies that I'd be using, down the dermis, digging into my dermis, paralyzing me, bones like a coal miner. And then over here, when I said, is this what we meant by achievement? Logro means achievement, or to achieve, in Spanish, ¿verdad? So that's what I meant, because he really influenced my decision making in whether I wanted to stay in Logro or not. So he really helped me look at it from outside in terms of what I really wanted. And at the end of the day, what I really wanted was to use my platform, my knowledge, and my expertise to be an entertainer, a creative director, an independent researcher, a social activist. So yes, a lot of that coincides with the nonprofit, but in the way that I had to be responsible for the nonprofit, there was no room for me to do what I'm doing right now. Feel me? So and then I talk about that cold autumn night, especially after that cold autumn night. It's me over here trying to remember because I wasn't dating them in the autumn time, so what the hell am I talking about there? Well, what? I'm trying to think. It's a fall time, something. It'll come to me eventually. But yeah. And then RD, espérame ahí, because at this point I really solidified. I made the decision that I was moving to the DR in 2 years. At the time it was 2 years. And the T is, that was 2023. And we're in 2025, and I got accepted to Chavon Film School for this fall. So everything happens for a reason. Pero sí, that is Rope of Healthy Thorns. All right. Number 8, Foundations of a Broken Home. This was created for my second Pride Festival performance in Passaic City, June 18th, 2023 at 1:17 a.m. Let's jump into it and then we'll analyze. Foundations of a Broken Home. Acto 1. Coerción. Silencio Bruno. No room for voice. Oppression through communication. Names sewn on skin like party gowns on a warm summer's eve. Para recordarme de lo que me hiciste un día. Acto 2. Terror. Noche oscura. Violador. Manipulador. Créeme. Familia no significa abuso mental. No significa abuso sexual, espiritual. Un amor fundado en terror. El monstruo que llevas dentro de ti me tortura. Acto 3. Control. Like thorns of poison ivy, stigmatized, revolutionized. Metamorphosis. Moth-like birth. Resilience inhales. Wrap her. Shower her. Heal her. Once lost, now found. Control. End poem. So yeah, this was the opening of my performance piece in the second Pride Festival for Passaic City, and it really just opened up the theatrical stage, right, to how this all started, right? This all started. My life, my birth, everything was built on a foundation of a broken home, right? Silencio Bruno, and that's from what's that Colombian Disney movie? Enchanted, Encanto, right? Encanto, yeah, Encanto, and then they said Silencio Bruno, but also Bruno Bluno, but the mascot for Broward University is Bruno the bear. The brown bear. So like, again, Silencio Bruno is like, we're silencing the institution, right? There's no room for voice, reflecting on the college protests in Palestine, where it's like we try to silence, quote unquote, Bruno, the institution, right? And there's still no room, no space for voice. And then names sewn on skin like party gowns on a warm summer's eve. I said that because in the performance I go ahead and perform with the song A Ningún Hombre by Rosalía, and she talks about how she is gonna tattoo the names of her abusers on her skin to remember how they fucked her up, basically. And party gowns on a warm summer's eve is because during May and June time, Mama and Odell is Mama's second daughter. Both of them had a dressmaking business. They sold dresses, and they were especially busy between May and end of June because of prom and graduation and some birthdays as well. So they would, since I was like 4, they would stay up like late as fuck. And that was just something it was a norm, So that's why I say names sewn on skin like party gowns on a warm summer's eve, because that was a norm for 20 years or more, and it's still a norm. They're probably having, they're gonna eventually have a busy time this summer, most likely. So saying that the oppressors, the names of the oppressors and the legacy of their oppression is sewn on their skins, on our souls, right? That's what I'm communicating here. We're martyrs. That's why I say, para recordarme de lo que me hiciste un día. Next, we talk about Act 2, Terror. So there's 3 acts because the theater performance itself that I created was broken up into 3 acts. So we go into Terror, where I start performing with the song I'm Tired by Labyrinth, referencing Euphoria, the show. Honestly, it says it. It just says it all there. I'm talking about my perpetrators. I'm talking about my manipulators. I'm talking about the definition of family doesn't mean mental abuse, sexual abuse, spiritual abuse, love founded in terror, right? El monstruo que llevas dentro de ti me tortura, right? So the monster that you have within yourself tortures me. I sometimes feel like I'm becoming that monster, right? Then the next act, Control, again with the conversation of thorns, thorns and poison ivy, right? I'm stigmatized, revolutionized, meaning, metamorphosis. We got the whole thing, right? But moths metamorphosize, and through that metamorphosis, resilience inhales, right? Bringing in a new future. And then using the moth, I truly believe moths are beautiful, despite the fact that a lot of people believe that moths are ugly. But I think, being wrapped around by the wings of a moth in the nighttime, because they're nocturnal. I am the fixed water sign, Scorpio, and we have a close relationship with both the moon and Pluto as like Scorpios. So like it all comes together with the shower her, with the heal her. Shower her is very important because something that a lot of folks may not know is that a lot of my healing and stability comes from taking a shower. So whenever I'm really, really manic or like there's just a lot going on, a shower usually does the job. And yeah, that's something that's very personal. That means a lot to me. I have had the best ideas while in the shower. Most of my songs that you listen to on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever may have you, a lot of those songs were made in the shower, made underwater, connecting with the water spirits that I know I'm connected with, via my semis, which are the Taino gods / deities. That's actually where I got my last name from. Semino is the plural form of the Taino gods. And yeah, once lost, now found. So again, what have I been saying, right? The Catholicism theme in everything that you see in my poems, right? Because I say once lost, now found. Here I'm quoting the parable of the prodigal son for folks that don't know. Basically, in this folklore, what do you want to call it, story time, we see 2 sons, right, and a father, and one of the sons, I think is the oldest or the youngest, I don't know, they want to do things on their own. They don't want to take care of the farm, so they dipped, and then life happened, and they came back, and they came back very poor, and basically their dad was right. But instead of punishing the son, his son, he welcomed him with open arms and actually had his other brother make him a feast for his return. His other brother did not like that shit, but the lesson was learned there, where it's just like, at the end of the day, God's kingdom is always open to all of its children. That's basically what the prodigal son teaches. Mind you, I don't literally go to... The last time I went to church was fucking senior year of high school, bro. It's the fact that I still remember all of this shit. Talk about rote memorization. All right. Let's go to number 9. Copy. Number 9. So number 9 is called La Reina Taína ? Una poema. This was created October 17, 2023, at 5:28 p.m. So this was also a post I made because this was during the time that I was creating my first EP titled La Reina Taína. So when I did the post of the release for that EP, I, in the comments, or in the captions rather, copy and pasted this poem. Bet. Okay. No fuimos. La Reina Taína, una poema. ¿Quién es la Reina Taína? La Reina Taína es una mujer. Es una mujer poderosa, brillante, bichota, cariñosa, indígena de la tierra quisqueyana. La Reina Taína es el puente entre la oscuridad y la luz, la ignorancia y la apertura de mente. Sin fronteras, sin binarios, sin limitaciones, sin relaciones vinculantes que parezcan enredaderas cubiertas de espinas. La Reina Taína es la personificación de la libertad. End poem. So yeah, so we're gonna go through it for folks that don't understand Spanish. So basically I'm asking myself, who is La Reina Taína? So La Reina Taína, think of La Reina Taína as Beyonce's Sasha Fierce, right? That is my Sasha Fierce. That's my alter ego. That is the person you see on stage. La Reina Taína is a woman, a powerful, bright, bichota woman, cariñosa, sweet, amicable, indigenous, from the land of Quisqueya, from, the soil. Quisqueya is the Dominican Republic. I say that La Reina Taína is the bridge between the darkness and the light, between ignorance and open-mindedness, without borders, without binaries, without limitations, toxic relationships, anything like that. La Reina Taína is the personification of liberty. It speaks for itself. It's just a powerful poem that just sets the stage for not only my EP, but for the it's 111, make a wish, for the future that I aspire to have. On to number 10. La Luz al Final de Cristobal, created May 24th, 2024. So we moved on to the next year here. And I wrote this at 8 o'clock a.m. So let us immerse ourselves, shall we, darling? Ahora. La luz al final de Cristobal. Soy la luz al final de Cristobal. Nos robaron nuestras lenguas, nuestras culturas, nuestros espíritus. Our tongues are chained to the mechanical wheel de capitalismo. La mayoría olvida natural quechua y taíno. Soy la luz al final de Cristobal. Las ballenas me visitan en mis sueños. Me llaman, me gritan. Me despierto, awake, woke if you will. Solo tengo una misión. Take us home. Somos las luces al final de Cristobal. Afro-Texas, follow us. We know the way out. From Tubman to Lumumba, from Nakba to Darfur. Somos el mundo sordo. Las theories in the flesh. Suifmuen, Kipakui, Nekpa, Síguenme, Sígame, Segueitai. End poem. So yes, it speaks for itself. It's a decolonial, Pan-African poem talking about, 1492, talking about Christopher Colombo, talking about how I'm the light at the end of the tunnel, of this tunnel of darkness, the darkness being the age of exploration, the age of expansion, this darkness being industrial revolutions 1, 2, 3, and now 4, this darkness being capitalism, white patriarchy, and sexual violence of all forms, Um, yes, that's what this whole poem is about. I talk about how they robbed our language, our spirits, our culture, and how our tongues are chained to the mechanical wheel of capitalism. Meaning that if we say anything, just like as if as some folks are standing up for Palestine, right? We lose our job. So our tongues are chained. We're like our tongues themselves are like a little hamster in a hamster wheel. I talk about how most of us don't even know or understand Natual and Quechua and Taino. Natual is an Aztec indigenous language in Mexico. Quechua is indigenous to the Quechua people in Peru and also other parts of South America as well. And then the Tainos exist across the Caribbean. So, yes. And then I talk about how there are flying whales that visit me and in my flying whales that visit me in my dreams. For folks that don't know, humpback whales are my absolute favorite type of animal of all time since I was a kid. I used to make whale noises from first grade all the way to eighth grade. Non-stop whale noises. That's how much I loved whales. They wake me up, they free me, right? I saw myself flying on the backs of the whales and just being free, kind of like the gal from Perks of Being a Wallflower. It's taking me home to where I belong, my community. And something that's really important to know, guys, that I didn't mention is that it was only a year and a half ago, maybe less, that I found out that Savannah in northeastern is it Savannah? I don't even know where it is. No, it's northeastern coast of the Dominican Republic. Every year, humpback whales specifically come there to, I believe, mate and then give birth to their children as well. So it's just really special that I'm really connected to the water, to the ocean, and to humpback whales. And like humpback whales actually do exist in the Dominican Republic. Like I did not know that, right? So that just talks about the intergenerational genetic relationship with nature that my indigenous ancestors had, you know? And then I close it out with saying that we are all the light at the end of this tunnel, this dark tunnel that is Christopher Colombo, right? I say the word Afro-Jotex, right? I coined the term Afro-Joteria, right? Afro-Joteria studies stemmed from Joteria studies, right? Which is the intersection and examination and celebration of queer and Latinx, Chicanx, queer and trans Latinx, Chicanx individuals. Furthermore, looking at the intersections of that via a Afro-diasporic Pan-Africanist lens, abolitionist lens, is what Afro-Joteria studies is, and people that fall under those categories, aka me, right, aka India Moore, for example, we're Afro-Jotas or Jotexes. And then I'm over here quoting, Harry Tubman, Lumumba, right, leaders in their history. Nakba, Darfur, the beginnings of genocide in South Sudan and Palestine. So, Sudan and South Sudan. And El Mundo Sordo, that's a academic term, but essentially it's the global south. It's the margins of the margins of the margins in the global societies. The theories in the flesh, Gloria Anzaldúa, created this phrase, this term, theories in the flesh, to essentially explain that our lived experiences as those of the mundo sordo, those in the global south, right, those on the margins of the margins of the margins, our lived experience is academic. Our lived experiences are academia. It is academia. And then I close out with saying follow me in different languages. So we have Swahili, we have Quechua, we have Natual, we have Brazilian Portuguese, we have Spanish, and we have Taino. And yeah. So that's that. Okay. Last one, my loves. La última. Y la última es A Tribute to Mi Madre Orquídea, created October 29th, 2024. This was a day after the death anniversary of my birth mother. I also made a tribute to her that you may find on my website, so please check it out and support the love. Here we go. A Tribute to Mi Madre Orquídea. Domestic violence. Definition. Noun. A pattern or behavior used by one partner to gain or maintain power and control over another intimate partner. This behavior includes various forms of abuse, physical, emotional, psychological, sexual, and financial, and encompasses coercive tactics that create fear and intimidation, undermining the victim's autonomy and safety. What does domestic violence look like? What does domestic violence look like? No, really. What does domestic violence look like? It looks like fuck you, hate you, you'll never amount to anything. It looks like coño, bastard, bitch, fuck, slut, whore, ungrateful piece of shit. Bitch, pass the Hennessy. Estoy harta de ti. I'll never be free. Death can only be freedom for me. ORCHID. Let me say it. ORCHID. Hold up, espérate. ORCHID. Definition. Obra de arte, rayo de sol, hermosura, icónica, delicada. ORCHID. Description. Olokun, Oya, Oshun, Orquídea. Orquídea, madre mía, ya está muerta. Cierra la puerta. The end. Que fierra. Ay, que fierra. Pero yo pienso mi mamá, qué dolor, qué pena. Convertirme en angelitas para que puedas entender que ya soy señorita. Juntos vamos a aprender. Juntos vamos a aprender. Te amo, madre mía. Soy tu hija, madre mía. Ella se fija, madre mía. Que se pasan los días, madre mía. Con tu amor, ella realiza, madre mía. Reborn again. Let's play pretend. Gender is a performance. I'm at my wit's end. Pause and wait. I know you hate. Please be patient. Girl, you know you're not straight. Goodbye, Orquídea. Toodaloo. Until next time, mi madre. Next time, bailamos bugalú. End poem. So, I mean, shit, it speaks for itself, Lord. Shit. You know? Asking what does domestic violence look like? I'm talking to you, I'm talking to myself, I'm talking to the world, I'm talking to God. And then I go into describing what it looks like. It looks like fuck you, hate you, you never amount to anything. These are in quotations, right? So these first three quotes, fuck you, hate you, you'll never amount to anything. Hello, we're talking about domestic violence, right? A lot of folks that are victims of or survivors of domestic violence, right? We definitely came across paths with this type of verbiage by our abuser, right? And then I keep going on. I say bitch pass the Hennessy. It rhymes, but also like Hennessy is a common like nigga drink, and a lot of men of color get drunk off of Hennessy, and you know that increases DV. And then I say Toy harta de ti. I did that because Harta / Manica en America is a track 3 of my album I'm on Ox Now. So here I'm essentially quoting that because that song in and of itself, for folks that don't know, definitely hear it. Go take a listen. It relates perfectly to this, right? Because there I talk about how America has made me manic, and you also hear me actually going through a real manic episode during Harta, the first half of the track. So definitely trigger warning, but it really shows like the authenticity of my emotions, you know? And then I talk about how I'll never be free. Death can only be freedom for me. Talking about how for a lot of trans people, especially trans people of color, we resort to suicidality to find that liberation, to finally achieve that freedom. It's very poetic. It's some real poetic justice. Now the next part is actually a full-on like pull from the skit that Kendrick Lamar did in one of his songs. I think it's institutionalized. I'm not sure. But he was talking about the definition of negus. So he was going on to saying negus definition. And he was going in basically saying that negus, the root word of it, means African royalty. And to remember that we are not niggas, we're neguses, meaning that like that word is derogatory, but it comes from a place of royalty. It comes from a place of European jealousy, right? Of white jealousy. So then I go on to doing a little acronym moment. Obra de arte, rayo de sol, hermosura icónica, delicada, right? I am the work of art. Then the 4 O's, including Orquídea, these are the different, deities and guides throughout Yoruba and certain African faiths, right? You have your Oshun, you have your Oya. And then, the rest is pretty self-explanatory. Que fiera ay que fiera, that is in reference to Toca Corazón, which is another song that I wrote. And then, yeah, and I love this because this is essentially a conversation that I'm having with my mom, and like letting her know that like gender is a performance and I ain't straight and I'm a woman. And then, until next time, bailamos Boogaloo. So it rhymed nicely. I learned Boogaloo in college. Pero yeah, it's a type of dance that combines like jazz and Cubans, and is it Cuban or Puerto Rican salsa? Just salsa, jazz, and a few other rhythms. But it was born in New York City. So yes, mi gente, to reimagine and challenge the self via poetry. Thank you so much for taking the time to have an open mind, an open heart, an open soul, as I poured my soul into this conversation, into this dialogue that we've had today. I hope everyone has a beautiful, beautiful time. We will see each other again in May, where we are going to be reimagining and challenging the self via lyrics, via music, where we're going to be talking about some of my songs that I've written so far. And just like how we did today, we're going to go line by line and we're going to analyze. And we're going to contextualize it with my life, and look at all of that through Afro-Jotex lens. So yes, mi gente, thank you for listening. I am your host, La Reina Taína. And as always, vete con Dios. Y que Dios te da amor, sabiduría y salud. ¡Mua!
No pasa nada, yo veo agua, meneo culito como Tyler.